With regards to causes of asthma in the elderly, there's what we call risk factors. Risk factors for asthma, meaning they are not direct causes, but then they are factors that have been associated with development of the disease. So these risk factors include exposure to smoke, cigarette smoking, and this cigarette smoking not just affects the adult or an individual, but it also affects the unborn child. When the mother smokes, when she's pregnant, the child could be susceptible to developing asthma in later life. So talking about in utero factors, there's when the child is born with either low birth weight or prematurely. And then, so the natural history of asthma is that during childhood, the child could present with asthma, and at that time, it has been found that there are more boys being asthmatic than girls. So by the time they get to puberty, the asthma could remit, meaning the child could no longer be asthmatic. However, during adulthood, some individuals could have, some individuals that had asthma during childhood could have asthma in adulthood as well. Then again, we have individuals that never had asthma when they were children, but then developed asthma at adulthood. And then again, in some rare instances, the elderly can also have asthma. So other factors include allergy, meaning in layman's terms that you're prone to have exaggerated response to either environmental or exposures to things like dust, fumes, smoke, and all that. Particularly if there's a so now answering your later question, if it can be inherited. So yes, there's a form of asthma, not all asthma, that is actually familial, meaning it runs in the family. And this type of asthma particularly is associated with what we call atopy, meaning familial tendency to have allergy, and it runs in the family with most importantly, when you have your first degree relative being asthmatic, and usually it's related to other conditions like Dr. Paul mentioned, with other allergies such as allergic conjunctivitis, allergic rhinitis, and dermatitis. So other risk factors include what we call the hygiene hypothesis. So this hypothesis states that particularly during childhood, when a child is being exposed to a clean environment, so paradoxically, clean environments, make one more prone to asthma as opposed to, being exposed to an environment whereby, like for instance, being in a farmhouse where you have a lot of environmental exposures. So why this happens is because when the environment's clean, so now to explain this so that we understand, taking the immune system, meaning in our body we have, like, let's call them soldiers that checkmate infections and other hazardous or particles that come into the body that potentially could harm us. So when you're exposed to that, two types of should I say, soldiers, you know, defense cells. We have two particular type. So this particular type, let's call them type 1 and type 2. So when you're being exposed to such an environment where there are a lot of, you know, environmental, say, substances, like, say, you know, a farmhouse that has animals with their you know, secretions, or has cockroaches or rodents. So in being in that environment, your body now switches to, like, say, brings out your soldier, let's call him type 1, the T1 soldier, to, like, defend you against all this. So doing that, as the T1 soldier comes to the forefront, the T2 soldier is relegated to the background. However, when a child is being exposed to a clean environment, the type 2 soldiers aren't brought to the forefront, meaning they're, should I say, non-active, and then the type 2 soldiers will now be the more dominant, you know, protective cells. So, and then the type 2 soldiers particularly are, they are, you know, involved in, you know, inflammatory processes that, you know, make one more susceptible to having reactions to exposure to substances that might not necessarily, you know, like cause any symptoms. So yes, so now going to your question about having asthma, as in asthma being prevalent in more cold regions than warm climes. Well, you see, asthma is prevalent worldwide, and the prevalence is increasing. We have had an increase as in within the last decade or so. So it's prevalent everywhere, cold, warm climate. So cold climate is not particularly a predisposition to asthma. However, if we're going to talk about, like, say, propensity to develop viral infection or any other infection that could predispose to you know, triggering asthma, yes, I would say cold environment, be it in cold climes or warm climes, you know, like us during Harmattan, yes, you have virus organisms thriving better then, and then yes, you could come down with a respiratory tract infection, which could trigger your asthma. But then particularly being in a cold region doesn't necessarily, or doesn't particularly predispose you to having asthma attacks.